Time now for the Executive Edge. We might even rename it, called Executive Time. We'll explain what that joke is in just a second for those of you who weren't on Axios yesterday. And we're talking this morning, though, about buybacks. Take a look at today's New York Times, because Senator Chuck Schumer and Bernie Sanders, they wrote an opinion piece calling for limits on corporate stock buybacks. They blame the practice for contributing to income inequality in America, and they blame President Trump's corporate tax cut for fueling a surge in stock buybacks. The senators say companies should pay their workers better wages and provide better benefits. They plan to introduce legislation requiring corporations to, and here I'm going to quote, address needs of workers and communities before the interests of wealthy stockholders. Discuss.
How do you enforce
Discuss.
that? That's just...
The stockholders are the owners of the company, basically,
right.
And they're the ones who would reap the first dollar if there's anything to reap. At the same time, I think it's clear that they're hitting on the exact criticism of the corporate tax cuts, which is, fine, you cut the taxes, what are they going to spend the money on? If they're spending on buybacks and dividends and not actually investing in the company, investing in infrastructure, how does that help the economy?
It
so
all
that's
goes
a
back
fair
into the
debate.
economy.
But
Every dollar goes back into the economy.
Every dollar goes back into the economy, I agree, but...
So I'm going to I'll go a little bit farther than that, because there were debates when the tax cuts were first put in place about whether this was going to happen, and it has happened this way, and whether you could have created incentives for the tax cuts to be used for capital expenditures as part of the tax cut project.
We've seen it before. I mean, in terms of the repatriation aspect, you could have tied that to investment in capital, which we've seen in the Bush administration. Yeah. That wasn't done. But, I mean...
You could have. I would have been more inclined to do something along those lines if I could have figured out a way to do it.
But Becky, you think if they had spent 100% on dividends, corporate buybacks, that ultimately would have filtered down anyway. So.
Right. I mean, look, I'd rather see them spending it on other things, but I think all money goes back into the economy, and I think you'd have a pretty difficult time. Maybe offering incentives is one thing. I don't think you can take a stick approach on this. You can offer a carrot approach to say, here's a way that you'd be treated better, that these tax dollars would be treated better if you were putting them into certain plants, if you could back them up with things. But money's fungible, and you can see games kind of played with those types of things,
but isn't there a concern about, like, if you...
To say this plant that I already had planned to build, I'm now going to say it was because of this, and I'm creating the jobs for that, and because now you're going to charge me even less for tax.
You're seeing it happen in opportunity zones right now.
And a lot of the stock wealth, it's in the sort of the higher tier, right? The upper tax bracket people who that money could flow elsewhere too. They're buying into other equities outside of the U.S.
Things too that own some of these things.
Right.
Like it doesn't all go to the wealthiest people in America. I mean.
Look,
it's not going to the poorest for sure because they don't own these assets.
A lot of institutional
you have to
holdings,
remember
yes.
I think we paint with these broad brushes when we tend to have these conversations, and you forget about some of what it goes back to. You talk to somebody like Larry Fink, and he'll point out, look, these are teachers' pension funds. These are firemen's pension funds. A lot of other things that are benefiting from this.
And they like that their stock is worth more on a buyback. Right. Exactly. Right. It's clear, I think, what senators are doing, that they're taking the blunt political tack here. Right. It's a fair debate, but I think, as you point out, Andrew, I think if there's a more sophisticated mechanism where it's tied to certain investment back in, then that might be a better way to go.